The iPhone 4S was a revolutionary device in some ways, but to understand why this phone is so important, we also have to look at the iPhone 4.
We're introducing iPhone 4, the fourth generation iPhone.
This was the last iPhone Steve Jobs himself would ever announce. It featured the Retina display, which is still a staple of the iPhone SE, a high-definition camera, and a completely new glass and metal build design that sticks around even today. It had a custom-made SoC, the A4 processor, which is still a series that sticks around today. So, what the iPhone 4S did was take what the iPhone 4 did so well and make it even better. For example, the introduction of the first dual-core CPU on an iPhone, along with the first 1080p camera and Siri as a built-in feature.
All of these improvements made the already incredible design language stand out even more. The truth is that the A4 was a first-generation design, and it fell behind in areas like multitasking, boot-up time, and responsiveness, especially as new iOS versions rolled out. But the iPhone 4S was twice as powerful while not sacrificing on other areas. As far as performance in 2022 goes, however, it's aged badly. Inside is the A5 CPU combined with half a gigabyte of RAM. For the first years of its life, it was fine on iOS 5 and 6, but in 2015, Apple made the controversial decision to give the iPhone 4S iOS 9, which brought the phone to its knees. It's unacceptably slow, even the UI elements lag behind significantly if the phone is already under stress. It's true that it got more app support that way, but it simply wasn't made for it. In 2022, there's virtually no app support at all. The Safari web browser also shows age, no longer loading modern websites correctly. Speaking of obsolete, the iPhone 4S unfortunately is no longer useful as a phone.
Now, I might be the only one who feels this way, but the fact that the iPhone 2G and 3G series were named for their network connectivity made it more disappointing that the iPhone 4 and 4S didn't feature 4G. The first iPhone to get that was the 5. Now, if you have no desire to actually daily drive a 12-year-old smartphone, I can understand. The last time I actually saw someone using one of these was back in 2018.
In fact, I was originally going to review this phone back then, but that fell through the cracks. This is a different 4S, one in much better condition than my original model. It also has 32GB of storage as opposed to the 8 or 16GB models, which are frankly useless for actually holding data.
I did say that app support is virtually gone these days, but the good news is that if you downloaded old apps on an old iOS device, you can just install those versions here. The OS itself is nostalgic to me. The old dock and notification shade center style are something we haven't seen in well over 6 years now. That change started following iOS 11.
If you kind of cross your eyes a bit, then you might believe that this is the latest version, as the flat design has carried the OS since then. Needless to say though, the operating system feels dated. With even more data as the screen it's running on. You have a non-widescreen Retina display which makes literally everything tidy and gives you no wiggle room. It's a 3.5-inch screen at 326 pixels per inch. In terms of sharpness and color reproduction, it holds up pretty well, but modern OLED screens make me wish for something brighter, bigger, and contrastier. It was great in 2011 I guess, but 12 years on, I don't recommend this experience to anybody.
So, the iPhone 4S has limited app support, no ability to make phone calls, and a pretty dated screen. So why do they even bother spending $35 on this thing in the first place? Well, for a few reasons.
Well, the first is the camera. It's a single 8-megapixel unit that can shoot full HD videos and reasonably sharp photos. One odd thing is that the field of view is significantly zoomed in. At a focal length of 35mm, you're getting a field of view of 55 degrees, compared to the 72 degrees of a 26mm focal length camera that most phones use these days. What I like about this though is that it's easier to get cinematic video because your subject fills the frame better. And I like how it isn't over sharpened like a lot of modern phone cameras are. It gives you a clear, natural look at what's around you. The second reason is that this phone is simply beautiful. It's just amazing to look at.
And yes, I know that basically every iPhone is pretty, but this is a stark contrast to the iPhones they made of yesteryear that were made of plastic. And even throughout the years, they went through several design changes before eventually starting up right where the iPhone 4S left off.
The iPhone 12, 13, and 14 series used this construction to a T, with the stainless steel side rails and glass covering the entire front and back. It's not quite the same though. Apple refuses to make a contrasting color scheme with the rails and glass anymore, resulting in a pretty bland looking phone if you ask me. The old school 30-pin connector, speaker grills, and headphone jack remind me of things you'd never get to experience on a newer iPhone.
Some might call it sad, but in reality, it's progress. We've come a long way since the iPhone 4S. And even if it's just a gorgeous paperweight at this point, I can still appreciate it for its amazing beauty and for importance to the smartphone world. And with that, this is Calc G, out.